Ever look at your watch and wonder why there are exactly 60 seconds in a minute and 60 minutes in an hour? Why not 10 or 100? When you check the time, you are interacting with a system developed 4,000 years ago. It originated in ancient Babylon, and while the name might sound like something from a storybook, it was a real, bustling port town that grew into the largest city on Earth. To find it on a map today, you have to look at modern-day Iraq. Babylon sat in a region called Mesopotamia, nested right between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. The techniques developed between those rivers outlived the city itself, becoming the standard tools we use to organize our lives today. Building a massive city there required extreme creativity, mainly because the landscape lacked the materials we usually associate with ancient monuments. There was no stone to quarry and no tall trees to cut for timber. To build, they looked at the wet, muddy banks of the Euphrates River. They figured out how to take that river mud, bind it with natural tar, press it into sharp molds, and bake it in kilns until it was rock hard. With those baked bricks, they built on a massive scale. They constructed towering, multi-tiered temples called ziggurats that rose high above the flat desert floor. Their biggest geographical limitation actually forced an engineering leap. Lacking stone and wood, they learned to build a city out of the earth itself. By the 1700s BCE, a king named Hammurabi united this entire region under Babylonian rule. He was a successful general, but his longest-lasting achievement was a strict set of rules known as the Code of Hammurabi. This is the stele of Hammurabi. It is a large black basalt pillar that served as a public record for the law. It lists 282 specific statutes covering everything from family disputes to business contracts and criminal penalties. The logic behind carving these rules into stone was a departure from the past. By making the laws permanent and visible to everyone, Hammurabi ensured that the strong could not easily change the rules to oppress the weak. Now, these laws did not treat everyone equally. The punishments were harsh, and they changed significantly depending on whether you were a nobleman, a commoner, or a slave. But even with those severe inequalities, this introduced the concept of public accountability. It established the idea that a society is governed by a reliable rulebook rather than the changing whims of a king. The Babylonians were a spiritual people who worshipped over 1,000 gods. They believed humans were divine co-workers, and it was their daily responsibility to perform the rituals that kept the universe in balance. To fulfill that responsibility, priests needed to track the movements of the stars. They created a mathematical system based on the number 60, allowing them to take a circle, like the night sky, and divide it cleanly into 360 degrees. Using that geometry, they sliced the sky into 12 equal sections, the signs of the zodiac. They traced exact paths for the planets and predicted eclipses years in advance. Their spiritual focus required immense calculation, and in doing that math, they created the framework for how we measure both time and the stars today. By the 600s BCE, King Nebuchadnezzar II had turned Babylon into the largest city on the planet. It was a vibrant metropolis, surrounded by massive walls and entered through enormous blue structures, like the Ishtar Gate. This is the era that supposedly produced the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. Classical Greek writers celebrated these lush, terraced gardens as one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Despite their fame, a century of excavations has found zero physical trace of these gardens in Babylon. Furthermore, among the tens of thousands of clay tablets recovered from the city's ruins, not a single one mentions them. Modern research suggests the gardens were real, but they were built by an Assyrian king about 300 miles away in the city of Nineveh. Years later, Greek historians likely confused the two different Mesopotamian capitals. Babylon's reputation was so grand that history simply absorbed the achievements of other empires and credited them to Babylon's legend. By 539 BCE, the city was struggling under King Nabonidus. He was an eccentric leader who alienated his own people by ignoring their chief gods and leaving the capital for long periods of time. While the city was politically divided, the Persian Empire arrived at the doorstep. Cyrus the Great faced a significant problem. Babylon's walls were considered impenetrable, so Cyrus tried something unexpected. His engineers went upstream and diverted the water of the Euphrates River into a side channel. The water level dropped so low that the Persian troops simply waded through the riverbed, marching right under the city's massive defenses. This is the Cyrus cylinder, which records the aftermath. The city surrendered almost instantly. Cyrus documented how he respected local customs and allowed exiled peoples to return home, earning a welcome from a populace tired of their own king. The greatest fortress of the ancient world didn't fall to a violent siege. It fell to political division and a clever piece of engineering. After Cyrus, Babylon lost its independence. Later conquerors tried to revive it, but the trade routes eventually shifted. The city was abandoned and slowly buried under the desert sand. But while the mud bricks decayed, the ideas developed there survived. The systems created between those rivers spread across the globe. The tools they created, written legal codes that hold the powerful accountable, advanced irrigation, and a day divided into 24 hours, are still the tools we use to manage our society. You don't need to dig through the deserts of Iraq to find the ruins of Babylon. You just have to look at the watch on your wrist.